Uh, uh, uh. All right, I think we are live. We're in a new locale today. I'm in the big TO Ontario. Where the F is everything here? So what is going on, you beautiful people? I hope everybody is having a wonderful Wednesday evening. Technically 7:30 in Calgary right now, but it's 9:30 here in Toronto, and I feel like it's 9:30. I am like exhausted at the moment. Also spent like 4 hours. Yeah, it was about 4 hours. So I guess like if you take into account all the travel and getting, the stuff and whatever, we're probably 6, 7 hours of like travel today to get to Toronto. And yeah, because I got meetings and stuff out here. So but we fortunately still get to do a live. So tonight we're going to be discussing, thyroid cancer. Actually, all things thyroid, because I get a ton of questions and stuff like that with regards to thyroid cancer. What does it mean with the GLP-1 medications? As some people definitely note and stuff like that, that there is a black box warning in terms of the thyroid cancer risk when it comes to the GLP-1 medications. They all automatically get the black box warning, and I'll get into that in just a second here. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're gonna dish on a little bit. So I'll chat on that for like 10, 15-ish or so minutes. All kind of depending if I get on a rant or anything. And then if you have any questions or what have you, we will take the questions and discuss it. And Shaz from Australia, it's 12:30 on Thursday. You guys are already in the future. Tell me how it is and who I should invest in so I can stop working. Anyways, so Wegovy, Ozempic, Saxenda, all the GLP-1 medications, and the thyroid cancer risk, or the black box warning. So specifically what that black box warning is indicating or concerned about is in terms of a specific kind of cancer called medullary thyroid carcinoma, or MTC. So it's a very rare type of thyroid cancer, very specific type of thyroid cancer, because there's papillary, different components of your thyroid, which is a little gland that actually sits in your neck right here. So different components of your thyroid gland and various or different components of those cells can ultimately develop into cancer and such like that. So it's only this medullary thyroid carcinoma that we're really concerned about. Now, we're also concerned about if you have another condition called multiple endocrine neoplasia 2, or MENS 2, they call it. And so this is kind of like multiple endocrine. So multiple endocrine organs are essentially involved. And this process can lead to this MTC, or this medullary thyroid carcinoma. And so if you have this condition, you're at a greater risk already of developing MTC. And so we are obviously going to be very cognizant, if we're going to put you on a GLP-1 medication, that we want to be mindful of that. Now, is there actually any risk of this thyroid cancer occurring? And overall, we haven't had a single documented case or a human case of a human developing medullary thyroid carcinoma due to a GLP-1 medication. Where this whole black box warning and all the data and stuff like that comes from is with regards to what they did in the animal studies, so the preclinical studies, and further animal studies with the other GLP-1 medications, because they all have to undergo that before they can go to human trials and that sort of thing. And what they found is that when rats or mice essentially were given a GLP-1 medication, what happened is these mice, some of them ended up developing MTC. And that kind of triggered the aspect in terms of humans. And so we kind of started to get concerned about it in that regard of things. And the reason was because we knew that humans also have a receptor in our thyroids for binding to GLP-1. And so we don't know what exactly the mechanism is. So it's kind of a thing of kind of covering our butts in one respect in order to make sure that we're doing this as safely as possible and we're not obviously causing this condition or anything like that. Like I said, we have yet to have a single human reported case of MTC developed from a GLP-1 medication at this point in time, but that doesn't mean that that might change or what have you. Now, that's why the black box warning is there and such like that. But what we have found in terms of the difference between mice and humans is that in the mice models, when their thyroid, when GLP-1 hormone binds to their thyroid, what happens is there's a certain downstream cascading effect within the cells that can potentially lead to this MTC. When we see it kind of like in petri dishes with human cells, we see a slightly different cascading pathway that doesn't look like it leads to this MTC. And so this is actually a really good example of differences between animal and human trials, is that animal trials are not always going to be very good at kind of indicating what a potential risk is with humans, because animals are animals. Their physiology, their genetics, all those kinds of things are a little bit different. And so if there's a different cascading pathway, if there's a different number of receptors, if there's all these other various things, then the risk of thyroid cancer or this MTC in humans may be very, very small, if any at all. And in fact, all the studies thus far, like I said, we haven't had a human case study of MTC developing at this point in time, but we're still very cautious of it, and we need more data to kind of confirm yea or nay, and we need to fully solidify that this is indeed the pathway that occurs, and the pathway that occurs in humans compared to animals or to mice doesn't lead to MTC, to finally rule that out. So basically, the risk is extremely low developing MTC, but if you do have a family history, if you've had MTC in the past, if you have this MENS 2 condition, then we definitely maybe don't want to give you that medication because, yeah, there is that potential risk, and we just don't know all the pieces of the puzzle at this point in time. And so that's kind of that aspect and that piece of it, if you will. So that's kind of the MTC. Now, the other common questions I get is if I have no thyroid, if I've had Hashimoto's, if I have hypothyroidism, all of those various other kind of thyroid conditions, or another thyroid cancer like papillary thyroid carcinoma or what have you, does that mean I can't take a GLP-1 medication like Ozempic, Wegovy, that sort of thing? And a general answer is no, you can still take the medication, particularly if you have any other thyroid issue, even other thyroid cancers outside of MTC. Wegovy and the other GLP-1 medications are not contraindicated at all. And in particular, if you've had, say, Hashimoto's or other things like that, they might actually be beneficial in helping you to manage your weight and to kind of make progress and such in that regard of things. So yeah, that's kind of the big overarching aspect with regards to thyroid cancer and the GLP-1 medications. Yeah, questions, comments, concerns, all of the above. It looks like I've got a couple of questions on non-specific things. So Janine, do you think there is a difference in where you do your injections? From a data perspective, there is no difference in terms of where you do the injection. Anecdotally, people do report that they seem to get a reduction in nausea and side effects when they inject in, say, their leg versus their abdomen. However, there's some confounding factors in that regard. The biggest one being is that the more injections or the more doses of the medication you get in your system, your body gets more and more used to the medication. So we don't know if like they were injecting in their abdomen and then suddenly, they inject in their leg and it just so happens their body just happened to get used to the drug at that point in time. And that's what ultimately led to the improvement in their symptoms. We have no study or data to say like these people started by injecting in their leg and these people started by injecting in their abdomen, and the people that inject in their leg overall showed to have less side effects and symptoms compared to the abdomen. So we don't have that data. Anecdotally, maybe, but I think there's a lot of confounders and stuff there. You certainly can try it if you're having side effects and stuff, but overall, there's no best place to do your injection. Basically, you want to keep it to your abdomen, your leg, or your upper arm. Those are the areas that we've studied. You want to do your best not to inject in muscle because it's going to be considerably more painful. But short of that, yeah, that's kind of just the general parameters in terms of injecting. Amanda, how do I get Ozempic to restart after a long stop? I lost 60 pounds 3 years ago, tried again and nothing. Basically, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. That's all there is to it. So for whatever reason, this time around, you're not currently in a calorie deficit, and there could be a lot of things. You lost quite a bit of weight last time, so maybe you chewed through a considerable amount of muscle tissue, muscle mass, and so now your metabolic rate is going to be significantly decreased. Way too many factors and stuff like that to kind of dig through and piece together and such like that, to really give you kind of any good solid answer in any way. So yeah, that would be kind of that. There's really no starting and stopping it or what have you. Yeah, it's just more or less if you're not losing, we're looking at things like you are not in a calorie deficit, and so we need to understand why you're not in a calorie deficit, what's going on there, and that sort of thing. So hopefully that helps. Sweet. Maybe there won't be a ton of questions today. What is a calorie deficit? I don't know much about any of this weight loss stuff. Okay, fair enough. So let's start at the very beginning. So when it comes to managing our weight, our weight is fundamentally driven based on one of the basic laws of thermodynamics. So it constantly is working on a calories in versus calories out. If your calories that are going in, so the calories and food that you're eating and stuff like that, is equal to the calories that you are burning, your weight is going to stay the same. If your calories are higher that are going in than what you are burning on a day-to-day basis, you're going to gain weight. If your calories are less than what you are burning on a day-to-day basis, you're going to lose weight. And so a calorie deficit, you're in a deficit compared to where your calories should be to maintain your weight. When you're in a deficit, that means your calories in are going to be less than your calories out. And ultimately, that's is going to be what drives weight loss. It's not insulin resistance. It's not PCOS, anything like that. The whole calories in, calories out still is foundational to all of that. Different conditions might affect cravings and stuff like that, say like PCOS, for example. Yeah, PCOS and the hormonal changes and fluctuations can certainly affect your cravings and your wanting and drive for food, which can make managing your weight definitely more challenging and stuff like that. Insulin resistance, we've got lots of data to show that even with insulin resistance, it doesn't affect your ability to lose weight. And in fact, in one of the studies, people who had insulin resistance actually lost more weight than the people who didn't have insulin resistance. So it really becomes, it's foundational with regards to the calorie deficit aspect of things. So that needs to happen in order for your body to burn excess energy and such like that that's on the body. Gigi, what is better between Ozempic and Saxenda, and which do you recommend? So if you look at just purely on a data, study per study basis, Ozempic is more potent than Saxenda. So it is more potent, more effective in terms of just purely leading to weight loss and stuff like that. Which one I recommend? I mean, it really varies person to person, and the person that's sitting in front of me. We have to take into all kinds of factors. Are they going to remember to inject a once weekly injection, which is Ozempic? Is a once daily injection going to be better for them? What are all the ins and the outs in that regard? So we need to take into all those factors. And some people do very, very well on Saxenda, and some people equally do very, very well on Ozempic. So a lot of different factors. If you look purely at just the data, Ozempic is more potent, but yeah, there's other things we need to look at for sure. For Bree, will too much of a calorie deficit be detrimental, or should it be just below maintenance? So there's never a time where like your calories can go too low and your body is going to go into starvation mode. Starvation mode is a myth. It doesn't exist. um if you are continuously in a calorie deficit, you will continuously lose weight. Your body does metabolically adapt and prevent and try to get you to eat more food and prevent further weight loss and such like that. But if you're constantly still in a calorie deficit beyond that, your body will continue to lose weight until you essentially die. Okay. Can it be more detrimental? I mean, certainly, the more of a calorie deficit that you're in, the greater your cravings are going to be, the greater your hunger is going to be. And when people, often like 99% of people who have ever done a diet in their life, tend to cut their calories too drastically and try to do 800, 1200 calories a day, they end up not sustaining it because they're just too hungry, right? Their body bounces back and says, yeah, that's great, you're losing weight and everything like that, but you're not feeding us to keep the proverbial lights on. So yeah, we're going to get you to eat, we're going to get you to binge, we're going to get you to overeat. And ultimately that starts driving the yo-yo dieting circle, where people cut out too much of their calories versus properly fueling and feeding their body, engaging in proper diet breaks and that sort of thing. And ultimately the weight ends up coming back, and yeah, becomes harder to lose next time. So lots of, not so much that it can ever be like detrimental and going to stop the weight loss, but those are the other things that you want to keep in mind in terms of mitigating and managing biology. So when I work with people, we create just a very minimal calorie deficit, usually 15 to 20% lower than what their maintenance level of calories is. We go for 12 to 16 to 20 weeks, all kind of depending on how they're doing. It's slow and steady, maybe a pound, maybe half a pound a week, but they're able to manage their cravings. They're able to be more mindful about their food choices. They're able to go out on the weekend and, enjoy a glass of wine with dinner and stuff like that. And they just need to be consistent, and they start engaging in things like lifting weights, eating more protein, getting sleep in, managing their stress, and doing all the other things around it. And ultimately, yeah, they're able to lose the weight. So, Haley gained 70 pounds on Abilify. Anything I can do besides stopping the medication? So, one of the first things that we always need to do in these kinds of situations when you're on a medication that's weight promoting, I mean, it's always a question of, can we switch you to a less weight promoting one? So Abilify generally is supposed to be less weight promoting, but certainly some people can gain weight on it. There are other antipsychotics on the market that are less weight promoting. That may be an option for you to switch over to. We could look at things like, yeah, adding in one of the GLP-1 medications to help counteract some of the appetite regulation type stuff. Also looking at, what are we using the Abilify to treat, and is it actually properly managing that said condition and stuff like that. So, is how much of it is the medication, how much of it is the underlying condition that we're treating, and just making sure we've optimized things there. And then it goes back to kind of the general making sure you're getting plenty of protein, weightlifting, doing all the other good self-care things and whatnot that are going to help you to manage the weight into the long term. So I tried Duramine and it seemed to have zero effect. Define zero effect. If you didn't lose any weight, or if you had appetite reduction but you didn't lose weight, I mean, there's all kinds of things with A, you weren't in a calorie deficit consistently enough, B, your expectations about what is considered success maybe didn't have the right frame of mind or the right perspective around it. A lot of people will think something's not working unless they're dropping like 2 or 3 pounds every single week, which is completely unrealistic unless you have hundreds of pounds to lose kind of thing. And even then, might not necessarily be realistic. So kind of checking as to what your expectations are. And you might be stable for a couple of weeks and then get a couple pound drop, and you might be stable for a couple of weeks and get a couple pound drop. So how are we defining what does zero effect mean? Do you have a diet for people who struggle? That's a lot of my personal struggle too. So there's not a specific diet that I recommend or anything like that. The biggest thing is just looking at how you can optimize your day-to-day, your patterns, and focusing on things like increased protein, plenty of veggies and fiber, cooking at home, adding in weightlifting, exercise of any kind, really, whole foods, unprocessed foods. All of these things are ultimately going to help you to just live a healthier and happier lifestyle, irrespective of weight loss altogether. So look at how you can properly nourish your body and ensuring that you're doing all of that in order, and that will ultimately help you to just not necessarily be just successful with weight loss. It may potentially help with that, but also with just general day-to-day health and stuff. So yeah, so that would be what I kind of recommend. I don't have any specific diet that I recommend. It's kind of just the boring basics, really. Karen, wise words. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Maggie Rose, does Ozempic have just as bad of side effects as Saxenda? I honestly think it's giving me gastroparesis. So Saxenda, I generally find Saxenda is less potent, has less side effects compared to Ozempic. So generally more people tend to do better with it. In saying that, I've had a few people where it seems that Ozempic is less, causes less effects and stuff for them. It's very rare. It might be that they just have more resolve and more resiliency at that point. I mean, a lot of different things to kind of look at, but in general, Saxenda seems to be less potent. So if you get side effects with Saxenda, then you're probably going to get side effects with Ozempic as well. Just about every single person I've started on Ozempic has gotten some amount of side effects. So yepers. Cool beans, everybody. This kind of actually works out quite well for me because I have traveled all day and I am tired and tuckered out, and I'm going to try to get my butt up at like 5 a.m. and go work out tomorrow. So it's good times in Toronto. Lydia, I found the opposite. Fair enough. Sherry, I get a steroid nerve block every 3 months. No weight loss ever since. Any suggestions? Yeah, you're not in a calorie deficit. That's kind of the biggest thing. So looking at just what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and stuff like that. A steroid injection, there will be a short-term period where it might affect your blood sugar levels. That might be maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, but thereafterwards, the effects of the steroid injection is going to be more localized to the specific area, and hopefully it's actually helping to manage whatever you're using it for, likely pain or some kind of inflammation, and allowing you to move more and stuff like that. So so fundamentally, you need to look at your dietary patterns, your activity levels, and kind of see what's going on in that respect of things, because after the week, one or 2 weeks, it shouldn't be having any more effect there afterwards, in terms of affecting your ability to lose weight. And again, even then, when it does initially in that first couple of weeks where it raises your blood sugar levels or affects kinds of those things, it might increase like your cravings for food and stuff like that. But overall, it's going to be a matter of just looking to see where things are at and getting into that calorie deficit. So always easier said than done, but some things to think about. I take omeprazole and mirtazapine. Can this also affect gastric emptying, cause vomiting? So mirtazapine, no. Omeprazole, neither of those, shouldn't be affecting your gastric emptying or causing vomiting unless maybe you just started, say the mirtazapine, for example. But even then shouldn't cause any kind of really even vomiting, maybe nausea and that sort of thing, but shouldn't cause vomiting. But if you've been on it for a while and depending on the dose, it shouldn't be causing anything in that regard. It's likely all just due to the Saxenda or Ozempic that you're on. Amanda, thank you for the tips. I feel more confident to restart Ozempic and a calorie deficit. Awesome. That is fantastic to hear. As I always recommend, on my website, healthevolved.co, O is an orange, /TDE-calculator. You can type in your info on that thing and it'll punch out how many calories to consume for a calorie deficit, for weight maintenance, and if you want to build some muscle and stuff like that. So you can check it out there. Again, that's healthevolved.co. There's a couple of links on my page and stuff like that, like under resources, it'll take you right to it, and you fill out your info and it'll tell you how many calories to eat. So ARG, radioactive iodine treatment for Graves' disease, and I gained 45 pounds. Needed to hear this. Sometimes that can be tough. And I mean, the underlying condition that we're ultimately using for the Graves' disease to kind of mitigate and manage that affects thyroid function. Thyroid hormone is essentially our metabolism regulator to some degree. And so, that'll definitely affect weight gain, weight loss, and that sort of thing. Maggie Rose, thank you for answering. Hello from Scotland. What's going on, Scotland? A lot of people from a long ways away. Really cool to see. I am going to go to bed, guys, because I got an early morning and a really busy day tomorrow. And so it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you all. And thank you for the questions. I'll be back next week. And I think we're talking about the drugs and pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer, I believe. Maybe I'll have to check the schedule, but we're talking about something every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. We are on here. Of course, check out my other channels at the official Dr. Dan. If you want kind of more in-depth videos on all of the above and stuff like that, you can check out my website or my YouTube channel at the official Dr. Dan. And that's pretty much that. So, hold on. One more question. So from YouTube, and being on Saxenda for 18 weeks, within a few days of starting it, my osteoarthritis and spinal stenosis symptoms decreased significantly. Is this a side effect of Saxenda? So not so much a side effect, and it may or may not be due to the Saxenda. It's really tough to say. But what we're finding is that some of these GLP-1 medications seem to have some anti-inflammatory properties. What exactly that means and how exactly they act, we don't exactly know. But they might have some benefits in that regard of things. And so we're seeing more and more of it. Some data is coming out, and I just haven't had a chance to kind of create a video and stuff like that around it. But some very interesting other potential benefits outside of any benefits in terms of weight loss and that sort of thing. So so there could be some other potential things, and your story isn't necessarily uncommon or anything like that. And we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But it's not a bad thing. Absolutely, it's not causing any negative effects or anything like that. So so hopefully that helps. And everyone else, what are you talking about? We're doing thyroid stuff. The thyroid papillary carcinoma shouldn't be an issue, but keep following up with your clinicians and stuff like that. Chris, I'm about to start week 3 of Saxenda. Awesome. Cool beans, everybody. Well, we will be talking more about all the above next week, so feel free to tune in. If you want to see this full live, it is up on my YouTube channel, again, at the official Dr. Dan. Other than that, I will see you beautiful people next week. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Yeah.